Money and family don't mix. At least, not cleanly. I learned that the hard way when the very people who shared my blood tried to crush my daughter's dreams without realizing that I'd been the one quietly holding up the family legacy for over a decade. I'm Diana Chin. I'm 47 years old. Until last month, I was known within my family as the quiet one, the dependable one, not a hotshot attorney like my siblings, not the face of the firm. I was simply the woman behind the spreadsheets, the CFO of Chin Family Law Offices, a title with no glamour, no recognition, but I was also the silent engine keeping everything running, and more importantly, I'm Sophie's mom. She's 17, my heart, my purpose, and she is a pastry prodigy. Since she was old enough to stand on a step stool, she's been in the kitchen, mixing, experimenting, creating masterpieces that look like art and taste like heaven. I'd spent years nurturing that passion, supporting it, funding it, believing in it even when others in our family didn't. I converted our garage into a professional-grade baking space for her 16th birthday, bought her equipment chef's dream of when she won the junior division at the International Pastry Championship last year. I cried harder than I did when I passed the bar, but to my family, it was all just a cute little hobby. You're a Chin? My father would say sternly at family dinners. 3 generations of lawyers. We don't throw that away for a bakery. Michael and Grace, my older brother and younger sister, would nod along like trained parrots. Their children were all pre-law at Yale, perfect GPAs, Ivy League ambitions. They made sure I knew that Sophie's choice wasn't just rebellious, it was a disappointment. What none of them realized was this: while they were basking in the spotlight of televised court victories and cocktail fundraisers, I was the one keeping the entire empire afloat. The Chin family law offices had been bleeding money for years. Overspending, bad investments, insurance gaps, quiet settlements. It was a miracle the firm still operated. But miracles don't come free. I covered the shortfalls with my own wealth they didn't even know existed, because while they were arguing over courtroom strategy, I was investing in tech startups, flipping undervalued real estate, building a venture portfolio so robust that Forbes would be impressed. And when the firm's building went into foreclosure, I bought it through a holding company, of course. Same with my parents' mansion, Grace's penthouse, Michael's vacation home. All of it under my ownership, hidden in plain sight, because I believed in family, in harmony, in letting them think they were still in control, until the night they pushed too far. Last Sunday, Sophie had spent days preparing a dessert for the family dinner. Not just a dessert, a statement. A 3-tiered cake, each layer representing a part of her life. The base tier, black sesame and 5-spice, honoring our Chinese roots. The middle, dark chocolate and espresso, evoking memories of late nights in the office with me. The top, yuzu and vanilla bean mousse, adorned with hand-painted chocolate. Designs of her dream pastry shop. She even named it Chen's Sweet Legacy when she revealed that she'd been accepted into the Culinary Institute of America with a full scholarship. The silence around the table was deafening. Then came the backlash. Absolutely not, my father said coldly, pushing the plate aside. You're going to law school. That's final. But Grandpa, Sophie's voice shook. I got in. On merit. We already contacted Harvard. My mother cut in smoothly. Your legacy spot is secure. I felt Sophie's heart shatter beside me. And then the avalanche began. You've indulged this fantasy long enough, Grace sniffed. We can't have people thinking a Chin runs a bakery, Michael added, eyes rolling. And then the final blow from my father. If you pursue this nonsense, you'll be cut off. No trust fund, no inheritance, nothing. I looked at Sophie's trembling hands, at the untouched masterpiece she'd poured her soul into, and something in me snapped. Sweetheart, I said gently, go get the black folder from the car. She blinked. The presentation one? I nodded. The one with the gold clip. She left, confused but obedient. Before my father could continue, I placed my hand on the table. Before you start threatening to cut her off, I said, you might want to understand what you're threatening her with. They all looked at me blankly like I'd suddenly started speaking another language. Sophie returned with the folder, and I opened it calmly. Inside were financial documents, mortgage statements, property deeds, wire transfers, proof of everything I had done for this family behind the scenes. I slid the folder to my father. Remember the malpractice suit for years ago? I said. When insurance refused to pay out and you thought it was settled quietly. That was me. He flipped the page, his hands beginning to tremble. Michael, I said, check the deed to your lake house. You'll find it's in the name of Linrose Holdings. That's me. Grace frowned, reaching for her phone. Same for your penthouse, Grace. And Mom, the hospital bills the firm's insurance didn't cover? I paid those, quietly, like I always do. The room was dead silent now, jaws slack, eyes darting from page to page. You see, I said, while you've been polishing the family name, I've been protecting its foundation. You may carry the reputation, but I carry the reality. My father looked up, red-faced. This can't be. Oh, it's all quite real, I said. And starting tomorrow, we're going to talk about what legacy really means. I turned to Sophie. Pack up your cake, sweetheart. We're going home. But what about? I smiled. Tomorrow, they'll learn that legacy isn't built by force. It's built by love. As we walked out the door, I heard the first stirrings of chaos behind us. But I didn't care. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, Sophie and I walked into the gleaming marble lobby of the Chin family law offices. It was too early for the partners to arrive, but just late enough for the staff to see us. They greeted Sophie warmly, as always. She'd grown up in this building, after all, bringing her homework to my office, handing out cookies on holidays, peeking into conference rooms pretending to be a little lawyer. But today, she wasn't here to play pretend. We made our way to the top floor, the executive conference room. Sophie carried two things, a USB drive and a tray of freshly baked croissants still warm. This feels weird, she said, arranging the pastries. I mean, are you sure they're even going to listen? I looked at my daughter. So brave, so brilliant, and so used to being underestimated. They'll listen, I said calmly. Because this time, we're not asking. By 9 a.m., the room had filled with the familiar faces of my family, my father, mother, Michael, Grace. Their expressions ranged from guarded to outright hostile. Michael walked in last, frowning at the sight of the pastries. Really, Diana? After last night, you're still trying to push this bakery fantasy? I smiled. Have a croissant. He scoffed and sat down. Let's begin, I said, plugging in the USB. The lights dimmed as the screen came to life with a spreadsheet read numbers, charts, trends. Not just any data. The financial autopsy of our family empire. This is what the Chin family law offices truly looks like, I began. 5 years of declining revenue, 3 malpractice settlements, missed debt payments, credit lines dried up, hidden by smoke and mirrors, and my money. Where are you getting this from? Grace asked sharply. My records. Every bailout. Every silent fix. All tracked. You didn't think your apartments and vacations paid for themselves, did you? My father clenched his jaw. That's not your responsibility. It was never your place, it became my place, I said, when you couldn't admit we were sinking. When pride took priority over reality. When appearance mattered more than survival. Michael stood up. You can't just hijack the family like this. I'm not hijacking anything, I interrupted. I'm restructuring it. I handed out thick folders. Inside, legal documents, proposals, new operating structures, effective immediately. Chin Law will operate under a new model, I said. Equal partnerships, external audits, financial transparency. Nepotism ends today. Grace flipped through the pages. You're serious about this? I've never been more serious. And if we don't agree? My father asked. I looked him in the eye. Then you can try to buy back your homes, your firm, your image. Good luck finding the capital. He sat back, stunned into silence. I clicked to the next slide, an architectural rendering of a sleek, modern patisserie. Sophie's future is not a footnote. It's a centerpiece. I've purchased the Franklin building downtown. The ground floor will be Chen's Sweet Legacy, a patisserie. The upper floors will house a culinary incubator, helping young chefs build sustainable businesses. That is our new legacy. Sophie's eyes went wide. Mom, you didn't tell me all that. I wanted it to be a surprise, I said softly. This dream deserves more than crumbs. This is madness, Michael muttered. You're throwing away our reputation. No, I said. I'm expanding it. We've defined ourselves by the courtroom for decades. But legacy isn't repetition. It's evolution. Grace was staring at the patisserie design. This space is actually incredible. Who designed it? I did, with Sophie. She's been planning this for years. Sophie spoke up then, her voice steady but emotional. I know law is important to all of you, but this is my calling. I'm not doing this to disrespect the family. I'm doing it to honor what legacy should mean. Tradition guided by purpose, not fear. There was a long pause. Then my mother reached for a croissant. She took a bite. Her eyes widened. This is exquisite, she whispered. I gestured toward the tray. These were made in our home kitchen last night. Imagine what she can do with a professional setup. My father picked one up slowly, like it might bite him. He took a bite, closed his eyes. This tastes like something from Paris, he said, quietly. She was invited to stage in Paris, I said. Turned it down for her scholarship here. Because she wanted to build something real, something lasting, right here. Grace exhaled slowly. So what do you want from us? Support, I said. Not just approval, real support. Shareholders in the new Chin family legacy. You can contribute or step aside. Michael rubbed his temples. I need time to think about this. You have until Friday, I replied. After that, we proceed without you. As the meeting ended, the silence was thick with shifting power. But beneath that, something else, possibility. That night, back at home, Sophie sat beside me at the kitchen counter, her laptop open to a draft menu for the patisserie. Do you think they'll come around? She asked. I think some already have, I said, and the rest will follow, or be left behind. She looked at me, eyes full of wonder. I didn't know you had all that power, Mom, I smiled. Sometimes the real power is staying quiet until it's time to speak, and the time was now. Friday arrived faster than expected. The family had until today to respond to my restructuring plan, and I hadn't heard a word. But that morning, as Sophie piped delicate swirls of raspberry mousse onto practice tarts in our kitchen, my phone buzzed. A group text from Grace. I've reviewed everything. I want in. A moment later, Michael replied, let's meet. I have questions. And then, astonishingly, a message from my father. Your office. Noon? I put my phone down and looked at Sophie. Looks like we've got a meeting. She grinned. Should I bring more croissants? Bring your business plan. By noon, we were back in the conference room. But this time, there was no tension in my chest, only clarity. Sophie sat beside me, her laptop open, calm and composed. My father entered first, followed by Michael and Grace. My mother uncharacteristically brought a notebook. She sat beside Sophie with a soft smile. I'll get right to it, I said. The plan remains unchanged. The firm is being restructured for financial stability and future sustainability. That includes auditing, partnership evaluations, and clear separation of personal and firm finances. Grace nodded. I reviewed the documents again. You're right, Diana. We can't keep running this place on image and instinct. I'm in. Michael folded his arms. I still don't like the idea of outside partners, but I also don't like the idea of bankruptcy. I'll work with the transition team. I turned to my father. And you? He met my gaze. For the first time in years, I saw something behind his eyes that wasn't authority but reflection. Your presentation was brutal, Diana, and long overdue. You have my support with one condition. My breath caught. What condition? You mentor Sophie as seriously as you mentored this firm. That wasn't a condition, it was a blessing in disguise. I nodded, gladly. Then my mother cleared her throat. And I'd like to propose a new role for myself. Everyone looked at her, surprised. Public relations and legacy branding for both the firm and the patisserie. I know appearances. Let me help shape the story. I blinked. You want to help Sophie? She turned to my daughter. I never understood before, but I see it now. What you created, it's more than dessert. It's heritage in sugar and flour. I want to help you tell that story. Sophie's eyes shimmered. I'd like that. Then came the final piece. Chen's sweet legacy wasn't just a patisserie anymore, it was evolving into a movement. We'd partnered with a local culinary school to launch an incubator program in the upper floors of the Franklin building. 5 young chefs would be selected each year to launch their own bakery or cafe concept under our mentorship. Grace would manage legal contracts. Michael would oversee business licensing and regulatory approvals. My mother, surprisingly, had already begun branding designs. And Sophie? She would be the heart. The first day of renovations, we all gathered at the Franklin building. It had once been a dusty relic of downtown, abandoned, graffitied, forgotten. Now, it gleamed with possibility. Hard hats on, we walked through the space as the contractor explained floor plans and timelines. Sophie kept stopping to sketch ideas, display cases, seating arrangements, a chocolate sculpture station. "This is real," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "It's happening. And it's ours." As we exited, we ran into a reporter from a local business paper. She'd gotten wind of the law firm restructuring and the patisserie plans. "Mind if I ask a few questions?" she said. "It's not every day the city's most powerful legal family opens a bakery." Sophie laughed nervously. I stepped in. "It's more than a bakery. It's a transformation. For our business, for our family, for how we define legacy. Mind if we quote you on that?" "Please do." That night, at home, Sophie placed a small white box in front of me. "What's this?" I asked. She opened it to reveal a miniature version of the cake she'd made at the family dinner, the one they refused to touch. But now, it had been redesigned. The bottom layer was still black sesame and 5-spice, our family heritage. The middle? Still mocha and chocolate, my long nights supporting her dreams. But the top layer now shimmered in delicate gold leaf and hand-painted sugar flowers. "What flavor is this one?" I asked. "Lemon Earl Grey with lavender honey buttercream." She said, "It's new. It represents what comes next." I took a bite, and for the first time in years, I tasted peace. 6 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Chen family law offices, once a prideful symbol of tradition and superiority, had become a beacon of reinvention. The restructuring hadn't been easy. Michael fought every clause. Grace nitpicked every contract, but slowly, something shifted. The staff noticed first: less shouting in hallways, fewer emergency meetings, and more transparency. For the first time in years, the firm operated in the black, but it was downtown, in a space once considered beneath our status, where the real magic was happening. The Franklin building, reborn under our vision, was bustling with activity. Construction crews worked overtime to meet our opening deadline. The bakery ovens were installed. Glass storefronts sparkled. Sophie's dream, Chen's sweet legacy, was just weeks from reality. I stood beside her one morning as she reviewed flooring options with the interior designer: walnut hardwood or reclaimed tile from a Parisian cave. The designer asked. Sophie tapped her chin thoughtfully, then glanced at me. "Go with your gut," I said. "Reclaimed tile," she decided. "This place should feel like a story." I smiled. "That's exactly what it is." Meanwhile, word of the project had spread beyond family circles. Local newspapers ran headlines like "Prestigious Law Family Launches Culinary Incubator" and "From Courtroom to Croissants, a New Era for the Chen Name." At a community fundraiser, a woman approached me. "My daughter dreams of opening a cupcake shop," she said. "Your family's story gave us hope. Thank you for showing that legacies can evolve." It was surreal. After decades spent hiding in the shadows of my siblings, I was finally being seen, not for my sacrifices, but for my strength. And Sophie? She was thriving. Her mornings were spent in recipe development with chefs twice her age. Her afternoons were full of business meetings, supplier calls, and culinary school classes. Her evenings, usually filled with sugar and flour, headphones on, humming to herself as she perfected her laminated dough. My daughter wasn't just a prodigy, she was a leader. Then came the invitation we hadn't expected. The National Culinary Arts Showcase, held in New York every spring, had selected Sophie as a featured young innovator. Only 10 students in the country were chosen. Her reaction was pure disbelief. "They want me to present?" "Not just present," I said, holding out the letter. "They want you to close the event, the keynote dessert." Tears welled in her eyes. I don't know if I'm ready." I pulled her close. "You were born ready. You've been preparing for this your whole life." Sophie got to work immediately. The dish would be a reinterpretation of the original 3-tiered cake, but this time, deconstructed into 3 plated desserts, each telling a chapter of her journey. The flavors remained the same, but the technique? Bolder, finer, unforgettable. When she left for New York, the entire family gathered to see her off. Yes, even my father. He handed her a tiny box. Inside was an antique pastry stamp engraved with the Chen family crest. "It belonged to your great-grandmother," he said. "She made mooncakes with it during the war. She would have been proud of you." Sophie hugged him, and for the first time, I saw something soft in his eyes. Pride, yes, but also humility. Back home, the final preparations for the bakery's opening were underway. Staff were hired, uniforms fitted, the logo etched into the storefront window. Sophie had chosen elegant typography and a blush gold finish. The slogan underneath read, "Legacy, Layered." I nearly cried when I saw it. Grace and Michael had kept their promises. Grace now oversaw a growing practice in restaurant law, working with 3 other culinary startups. Michael used his connections to negotiate bulk ingredient contracts and had surprisingly become obsessed with packaging logistics. Even my mother, once obsessed with family prestige, had thrown herself into branding. She'd booked media interviews, styled the photo shoots, and even designed Sophie's opening day chef's whites. She deserves to feel as powerful as she is, she'd said as she adjusted the embroidery on the jacket. Sophie Chen, executive pastry chef. We were all finally rowing in the same direction, not out of obligation, but out of belief. The night before the grand opening, I walked through the empty bakery alone. The shelves gleamed. The display cases were spotless. The scent of lemon and vanilla still clung to the air. In the back kitchen, Sophie's prep list was taped neatly to the wall. I stood behind the counter, imagining the customers who would come through these doors. Families, students, couples on dates, hungry tourists, all of them tasting a story baked into every bite. And then I saw it on the corner of the counter, beneath a cloth. I lifted the fabric. It was the original cake, the one Sophie had made for the family dinner all those months ago. She'd remade it, exactly as it was back then, only this time, someone had written on the base in delicate chocolate piping, "For the woman who believed in me first." My throat tightened. I hadn't cried in years, but in that moment, in the quiet warmth of my daughter's dream, I let the tears fall. Tomorrow, the doors would open, but tonight was for us. Opening day. A soft golden sun filtered through the calf windows as final touches were made. Napkins folded just so, pastries arranged like edible art, coffee machines humming to life. Chen's sweet legacy, the dream that had once been ridiculed as a glorified bakery, now stood proud on one of the most prestigious downtown corners. I watched from the doorway as Sophie adjusted her chef's coat, her face a picture of calm focus. "You ready?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She smiled, her eyes gleaming. "I've never been more ready in my life." By 9 a.m., a line stretched around the block. Local press, influencers, community leaders, and even rival restaurateurs had shown up. Chen's sweet legacy wasn't just a bakery anymore, it was a symbol of change, of courage, of choosing your own path. Inside, the display cases sparkled with perfection. Delicate matcha opera cakes, passion fruit tarts with yuzu glaze, croissants so flaky they crumbled if you looked at them sideways. But the centerpiece was Sophie's signature, a plated version of the original 3-tiered cake, now deconstructed into a tasting experience called the Layers of Me. Each plate carried a story, heritage, memory, and future. The black sesame and 5-spice mousse, the dark chocolate espresso crunch, the yuzu vanilla mousse dome with hand-painted chocolate petals. Every bite told the journey that had brought Sophie and all of us here. Mid-morning, the family arrived. My father, who once declared Sophie's dreams ridiculous, was now dressed in a perfectly tailored gray suit, with a Chen's sweet legacy pin on his lapel. He stood in the corner for a while, observing silently. Then, without a word, he walked behind the counter and, shocking everyone, put on an apron. "Teach me how to use the espresso machine," he said to Sophie. She laughed. "You sure you want to risk ruining your image?" "I already did that," he said, cracking the tiniest smile. "May as well make it worth it." My mother floated between guests, greeting them with a warmth I hadn't seen in years. Grace gave a speech about modernizing tradition, and Michael handed out gift boxes with QR codes linking to Sophie's digital cookbook. Even my nieces, once laser-focused on law school, had asked to intern at the bakery this summer, not to bake, but to learn how a business like this ran. Because now they saw what success could look like beyond courtrooms and corporate titles. The highlight of the morning came just before noon. The mayor had arrived for a ribbon-cutting ceremony, complete with photographers, a small press crew, and a proclamation naming it Legacy Week in the city. Sophie, beaming in her chef's whites, took the microphone and cleared her throat. "I was told I was throwing my life away by not going to law school," she said, her voice steady. "I was told my dream wasn't a legacy, but today, I get to tell you that legacy isn't something you inherit, it's something you build." Applause erupted, cameras flashed, and my heart swelled. The sign above her glowed in the midday light. Chen's sweet legacy, layered. Weeks passed, then months. The bakery thrived. People came not just for the pastries, but for what it stood for. The idea that tradition and innovation could coexist, that family didn't have to mean conformity. Sophie's recipes were featured in Bon Appetit. She did a TEDx talk on the art of culinary storytelling. Even Harvard reached out offering her a guest speaker role in a course on entrepreneurship. Funny how fast they came around. As for me, I returned to the firm part-time, now rebranded as Chen and Legacy LLP, with Grace as managing partner and real accountability at every level. We expanded our services to support female entrepreneurs and minority-owned businesses. Michael, to everyone's shock, became obsessed with optimizing workflows for bakeries and restaurants. Turns out, logistics was his real talent all along. My father, he mellowed. Once a tower of expectations, he was now a regular at the bakery, hosting morning coffee meetups with old law partners and praising Sophie's seasonal danishes like a proud food critic. One afternoon, he sat across from me at a corner table and said something I never thought I'd hear. "You know, Diana, you were always the strongest of us." I just didn't see it. I smiled. You weren't looking. Years later, the bakery would open a second location in San Francisco, then Chicago. Sophie would be named to Forbes 30 Under 30. But to me, her greatest accomplishment wasn't fame or expansion, it was that she never forgot what started it all: a dream, a cake, a mother who said, "I believe in you." Now, when I sit in the back garden of Chen's sweet legacy, sipping tea while Sophie runs the kitchen, I often think back to that family dinner. The scorn, the threats, the absolute certainty that they knew best, but they didn't, because money and power built on control eventually crumble. True legacy, that's built on trust, on freedom, on letting the next generation rise, even if it's in a direction you never imagined. As Sophie often says while piping her signature floral buttercream, sometimes, the best revenge isn't winning the argument, it's building something too beautiful to ignore. And oh, how sweet it is.